Is Billy Donovan on the hot seat for the Chicago Bulls? That's what we're going to be talking about on today's edition of the Bulls Report by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and welcome in. We're going to be doing our first ever mailbag here on the channel. I put out a post on our community page, and you guys answered the bell by asking me your most intriguing questions about the Chicago Bulls this season. And DeMarcus Hudson kicks us off talking about Billy Donovan. He says, if the Bulls have a worse season this year than last year, say lose an additional 5 games and not make the play-in, does that put Billy Donovan on the hot seat? I think definitely. I think the Bulls would have to maybe, let's just say they go throughout the year and maybe they do make the playoffs and they lose first round. I think his seat would be hot no matter what. But I think if the Bulls just flat out miss the play-in, I think he should be fired, and this is what his seat would be looking like. His seat would be absolutely on fire if that was the case for the Chicago Bulls. If you talk about Billy Donovan as just his coaching career, dating back to, him being the head coach at Florida for our very own Joakim Noah and actually Al Horford when they won back-to-back national championships, he was fantastic. But then if you go to him with the Thunder, maybe that team wasn't, ready to win with all that talent, the bunch of young talent with like the Harden and KD and Russ days, but that team had talent and he was never able to get the most potential out of that group, in my opinion. So Billy D, I still think the jury's out on him if he's a good coach for the Chicago Bulls, but if the Bulls don't live up to expectations this year with how much talent I believe they have from top to bottom on this roster, and they miss the play-in, I would probably be pounding the table for the Bulls to fire Billy D. But Hudson, thanks for the question. I appreciate it. Next one coming in from Gregory Gao 1427. He says, when will the Bulls invest in bigs? All they seem to do is get rid of players that are 6'10 and over, only to replace them with undersized role players playing out of their natural positions. And I agree. The Bulls definitely have a problem with size on the roster right now, and size matters. If we're talking about the past, a couple of NBA champions, like the Denver Nuggets this past year, really big physical team. Their ability to run, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic at that 3, 4, 5 spot, they were a big unit. Go back to the year before. Obviously, the Golden State Warriors are the outlier in this situation, but that's just because they're so talented everywhere else. But the years before that, those Milwaukee Bucks teams, they were huge. Brook Lopez, Giannis, Bobby Portis. That Lakers team with LeBron, Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard, they were big teams as well. The Raptors teams, even the year before that, when they had Kawhi, Siakam, Marc Gasol and all that, I feel like size is one of the more underrated attributes on a championship team and just strength in general. These past NBA champions, they have all had a sense of physicality, and if you don't, you pretty much have to be perfect everywhere else. And the Bulls roster, the way it sets up right now, yes, you have Nikola Vucevic and Andre Drummond at your centers, but they really don't have any power forwards. Patrick Williams is more of a 3, 6'8", 7-foot wingspan. That's a 3 in the NBA right now. And yes, he can play some 4 if needed, but his natural position is that 3. Same with a guy like Torrey Craig. So I'm all in. Maybe they could end up bringing in a guy like Boogie Cousins or a Dwight Howard. I don't know. A little unlikely there, but I agree with you 100%. I do think the Bulls need to add more size moving on in the future because it's proven to win. Captain Rivalry 24 joining the conversation as he says, will the Bulls try to blow it up if they're below 500 at the trade deadline? This is interesting because, last year the Bulls were below 500 heading into the NBA trade deadline, and I thought they were for sure going to blow it up, but they ended not doing that and ended up kind of running it back and ended up missing the playoffs. But I hope they would. If the Bulls are in that position, NBA trade deadline rolls around, and we're all kind of looking around, and the Bulls are, let's just say they're 5 games below 500, whatever it may be. I would sure hope they would blow up this roster because I do think you have guys that could get you draft capital. Like Zach LaVine, let's just say he has another great year where he averages 26 a game on really solid efficiency like he's been doing throughout his entire Bulls career so far. I could see a championship contender getting a little desperate and being like, hey, Zach LaVine is the piece that will put us over the top. Let's go out. Let's bring in LaVine, and maybe we'll toss the Bulls 2 first-rounders. But then you got role players I think other teams would maybe toss you a first for as well. Like DeMar DeRozan on an expiring contract. Like maybe a team will throw you a late round for protected first for him, bring in another bucket getter. But who says a guy like Alex Caruso can't fist you a first-round pick as well? Teams, especially contending teams, would kill to have a guy like Caruso on their roster. So I sure hope they would blow up this team if they are in that position where they are below 500 and that trade deadline rolls around. I would obviously love for them to move off a guy like Vooch as well if they aren't winning many games. But thanks for the question. That's an interesting one to talk about. Well, I'll ask you guys, how many games do you think the Bulls will win next season? I'll make this the pinned comment on today's video. You guys know the drill around here if you guys are a longtime viewer of the channel. YouTube, they're going to throw an ad break your way. Sit back, let it play, and let me know, how many games will the Bulls win next season? Give me your best guess down in the comments section. Coming in from Rock 053 Run, what a cute little puppy that is up there in the top left of your guys' screen right now. He says, who is your favorite Bull of all time? So my favorite Bull of all time, you could go lots of different directions here. You could go Jordan, obviously the GOAT. You could go Joakim Noah. You could go a guy like Luol Deng, or even a guy like Boozer if you're a fan of him. But for me, it's got to be Derrick Rose. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, watching D Rose kind of blossom into the, Rose, obviously he is, right before our eyes. It's got to be D Rose. I still say, his story of being just a basketball player growing up in the city of Chicago is one of the coolest stories that we have ever seen. Growing up in the RAC, going to Simeon High School, then going to Memphis for a year, and then the Bulls having a 1.4% chance. I'll never forget that. A 1.4% chance to win that draft lottery, and they did it, and they got Derrick Rose. Actually, a funny story about that draft lottery. I'll never forget this. It's kind of like a flash memory I have in my head. So my dad was dropping me off for baseball practice the night of the NBA draft. And remember, there was a ton of debate. It was either Michael Beasley or Derrick Rose. And we all were kind of under this impression, you have to take Derrick Rose. He's the hometown kid. He's the undisputed #1 overall pick. But then there was a lot of chatter coming out that I remember that maybe the Bulls could go in a different direction and get a guy like Michael Beasley. And I remember almost in tears to my dad before practice, before he dropped me off, and be like, I'm not going to be a Bulls fan anymore if they don't take Derrick Rose. Ended up taking him. Obviously, we know how his career ended up shaking out right there. But youngest MVP in NBA history. He's probably going to hold that title for the next couple of years. But my favorite Bull of all time, got to be D Rose. Honorable mention, though, Joakim Noah. Young Kings Music 5649 coming in with another question. He says, do you think the Bulls will or have addressed shooting? I think they have. The Bulls, obviously, if you're talking about biggest needs heading into this offseason, I think shooting was on that short list. If not, you can make the argument it was the #1 kind of key addition that the Bulls need to add in. And I think they added in two guys that shoot the three ball pretty well. Both these guys, not known as shooters throughout their NBA careers. If you ask a casual NBA fan, do you think Javon Carter or Torrey Craig are lockdown shooters? Most of them would probably say, who the hell are those guys? But both of these guys, they shot over 40% from deep last season, and they're just solid catch-and-shoot guys. They both shoot catch-and-shoot threes over 40% in the NBA. And, another key, another addition the Bulls need to make this offseason was adding in a point guard. They did that with Javon Carter as well. The one thing on this Bulls roster that I feel like it's missing is, the definition of, a true, catch-and-shoot shooter, where, a guy you can run off screens, like an Evan Fournier, Kyle Korver type of guy. I do still feel like the Bulls are lacking that. But then again, there's not many left of those guys in the NBA. There's not many of those, J.J. Redick builds anymore. A lot of these, role players in the league are the definition of 3-and-D guys. I think that's kind of the archetype that a lot of these NBA GMs and owners are kind of looking for, is a guy like Torrey Craig, a guy that's 6'8", can guard multiple positions, and also knock down that catch-and-shoot three at a high rate. Overall, Bulls shooting, I think it should be a lot better, because if we know the Bulls were actually top 5 in field goal percentage this past season. That's crazy. People forget about that. The Bulls were top 5 in field goal percentage, but they were 22nd in points per game. It's a volume thing at the three-point line for the Chicago Bulls. They're going to need to shoot more threes. Adding in these two young cats, I think it will help that 100%. So I do think the Bulls have addressed shooting. I would hope maybe they would do a little more, but a lot of the options to improve the shooting for the Bulls are probably in-house. It's going to come down to guys like Kobe White, Patrick Williams, those guys stepping up and knocking down more threes at a higher volume. Guys, thank you guys so much for watching today's show. If you guys haven't already and you like what we do here at the Bulls Report, just hit that subscribe button, lock us in. We want to be your go-to Chicago Bulls YouTube channel. And if you're a real one and made it to the end of today's video, just give me a C red down in the comment section so I know who all the real ones are that watched all the way to the end and support all of our shows. My name is Patrick Siepman. Thank you guys so much for watching today's edition of the Bulls Report. See you guys next time. Go Bulls.